All right, let's move on to the Raiders. Big news today. I think Josh McDaniels just signed his pink slip. I don't understand this Jimmy Garoppolo move. I don't understand why you run Derek Carr out and you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo unless there was a personality clash. I don't know Derek Carr very well, but my perception that if there's a personality clash, it's probably not on Derek Carr's part unless he was just sick of some bullshit. I don't know. I don't mean to idolize the guy because I don't know him, but it seems like either a lateral or a lesser move to me. I'm not, and I know we've got a lot to talk about with the Raiders, but this is the hot news from today that Jimmy G is signed with the Raiders, and I want to get your take on it.
So I'm glad you mentioned that this was either a lateral or a lesser move because last week I put a poll on Twitter because I wanted to see what people thought about Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr when you compare them together, and it seems like people think that these are basically the same guys, and that's how I feel. I think Derek Carr, Jimmy G. You look at what they're good at, what they're not good at. They both have a little bit of deep ball inaccuracies. Like these are basically the same guys. I think Jimmy G, if you really look at it, probably turns the ball over less, but Jimmy G has also had much better teams in his career than Derek Carr has had, so the stats are better when you go look at Jimmy G. Overall, I feel like these are basically the same guys. I've always been a Derek Carr fan, so I understand that there's a little bit of bias that comes into it. If I'm the Raiders, I would have kept Derek Carr, but I also understand the position where Derek Carr was probably like, look, you guys never build this team to actually be able to compete for a championship. So I want to go somewhere else. And at the point that they were at with his contract and the years that they had left on that and the way it was structured, like it just made sense for both parties to move on when they did. And it made sense for the Raiders. If you're going to move on from Derek Carr, go get a guy you're familiar with. If it's not Tom Brady, it might as well be Jimmy G, who has a long track record of being able to win.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I hear everything you're saying, and I don't disagree with any of it. I just don't think. I think McDaniel's ship is sinking, and I think this is just, this is like straightening the chairs on the deck of the Titanic as it's going down. I mean, it may look pretty, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do with the integrity of the ship. And I think that McDaniel's days are numbered in Vegas. I really do. But anyway, moving on. So the Raiders obviously don't need the QB's taken care of. So I know you had mentioned Carr and Jarek Stidham, which he signed with the Broncos, right?
That is correct. A 2-year deal
with the Broncos. Yeah, and we'll talk about him in a minute. So the QB position is off the table right now. They've got that solved, or at least they feel like they have it solved. But they've got some other needs. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, so they need to fix the offensive line. We've been talking about that pretty much the entire time we've been doing this show. They have to get the offensive line figured out, and that doesn't change. The quarterback might change, but the needs don't change. You still need an offensive line, and they have 45.5 million. The current number, the updated number that I last saw was $45.5 million in cap space. You can go get some offensive linemen. You can also go get a couple of the defensive linemen. There are a lot of defensive linemen to choose from. You don't have to go get the stars. The defensive tackles are making a lot of money right now on their contracts. They go get guys on lesser contracts that could still be, average players and be able to do what they need to. But the Raiders for years have needed to focus on the secondary. It's really been all the defense, but the secondary for them has been an issue for a long time. They don't draft well. They're not getting guys in free agency. You have to go figure something out. There's some good guys in free agency this year, and I would expect that the Raiders are going to be in play for some of the corners. I would expect they're going to be in play for some of the safeties that are there. So all around, you have things pretty much all around. Again, you have the quarterback figured out. You have Devontae Adams in the building, and other than that, everything else is pretty much on the table. You franchise tag Josh Jacobs, so I guess you don't need a running back. But the Raiders have cap space, and they have a lot of holes on this roster that they have to get figured out. It'll be interesting to see what they do. At the point that they're recording this again, the only person that we know that they're going to sign is Jimmy G. Other than that, there's nobody else on the table. So they have a lot of things to figure out, and I can't wait until we revisit and see what the Raiders do later on.